Hi yarny friends, I'm Sara Sach and welcome back to my crochet channel. Now today's video is Friday Fun Day, of course, and so I thought it would be really fun to show you how to make what I'm calling the accidental heart granny square. Now this is not our granny square of the month. This is just a fun little 5.5 by 5.5 inch granny square. So how this happened is that picture I showed you at the beginning of the video of the blanket. I was just making the scrap blanket, scrap happy continuous granny square blanket, and I'll put that link down in the notes if you want to make this into a big granny square blanket. But I had a lot of people ask me, how did you make the heart in the center of the blanket? And basically it was an accident. And so I decided to go back and look at what I did and show you how you can make a cute heart granny square really simply just by changing colors at certain points of the pattern. And so this is all done in my different scrap yarns. This is a velvet sparkle, and I have 3 colors of that. I've got the purple, this rose red, and then an off-white cream, and these all have sparkle in them. I don't know if you can see that, but I just happen to have that on hand. And then these are all medium weight number 4 yarns. Now this is a medium weight number 4 also, and so I did all these in medium weight number 4 yarns and lots of different ways just to show what you can do with the super fun accidental granny square. It's a super fun little pattern, and you know, you can do lots of things with granny squares, from hats to blankets to bags. It's totally up to you. Or you can leave off this last row of single crochet and just continue on making a big granny square blanket with a heart in the middle. And wouldn't that be a fun baby blanket? Hearts aren't just for Valentine's Day. Hearts are for all year long. Now again, this is a 5.5 by 5.5 inch granny square, and it worked out just about the same. You can see it's just a little bit bigger with the velvet yarn, not by much, because they're all medium weight number 4 yarns. Now I will put the complete pattern with pictures on my blog, and as always, I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. Now let's make some, because these are super fun to make. So like I said, we're using medium weight number 4 yarns. These are all acrylic. You can use cotton and make some washcloths if you want to, but we're going to use this velvet yarn today. This is some I had on hand. It's called Velvety Smooth Sparkle. This is ivory. This is blush, this sort of rose color, and this is purple. They're all medium weight number 4 yarns. There's the 4 right there for you. And these are 94% polyester and 6% metallic, and that metallic is that gold sparkle that's going through there. I just thought that would be super pretty to make a table runner using this velvet yarn, and I hope I can get it done. All I'm going to do is use how I've got these in different ways, and I'm going to even do another one today that's these colors but different. Okay, and I'm only using 2 colors on each one. Some of these over here I used 3 colors. This one I did it completely different and did the last row of the granny square in the blue and then did the single crochet in blue as well. So you can change colors all you want to. The main thing is how we change colors in order to make this fun little heart in the middle. Don't worry though, it's super easy. But I'm going to be doing our demonstration today with the velvet yarn. Again, any medium weight number 4 yarn will work. And we're going to be stitching with our H hook, which is a 5mm. You need a needle for weaving in ends and your scissors. And that's all. I'm going to start with my cream sparkle because I'm going to make my little heart in the cream. And then I'm going to use the rose color, which is blush, for the middle part of the square. And then, of course, I'm going to trim with the cream. All right, so we're going to start with our slip knot. We're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to join this into a circle. And if you would like to use another method to make your circle, that's totally fine. All right, we're going to make our stay knot so our circle doesn't come undone. All right, so we're going to go in, pull up a loop, and chain 3. All right, now I'm going to stitch 2 more double crochets. 1 and 2. And chain 2. All right, now I'm going to do 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3, and chain 2. You'll also notice I'm stitching over my tail of yarn, and that's so I can close that hole up later. All right, so now what we're going to do, we stitch 3 double crochets, chain 2, and now we're going to repeat that 2 more times. Chain 2. There we go. And then we'll do our last one. 3 double crochets and chain 2. All right, we're going to join to that chain 3. There we go. And now we're going to slip stitch in those 2 double crochets. Then we'll slip stitch in the chain 2 space and chain 3. Now don't forget, we want to close up this hole, so we're going to gently pull on that string and close up that hole. And then we'll grab our needle. A little harder to thread that needle with this fuzzy yarn. There we go. And we'll just weave this around so that it stays put. We want our hole to stay closed. All right. Clip. All right, so for round 1, we have 4 sets of 3 double crochets, chain 2. Now on row 2 or round 2 is where we're going to form the heart. All right, so we're in this corner. Our chain 3 counts is our first stitch. So we're going to double crochet 2 more times. 1 and 2. We're going to chain 2 and then stitch 3 double crochets in this same chain 2 space. I got my loop a little bit loose there. Let's tighten that up. There we go. 1, 2, and 3. Now we'll chain 2, go to the next corner and repeat that. 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Now, this doesn't really look much like a heart, does it? But what we do on the remainder of this row and the next row is where it starts looking like a heart. All right, so we've done the 2 corners in the same color that we started with. I have cut my color 1. Now I'm going to bring in my color 2, which is this blush, this rose color, dusty rose, I think is what we call that. And now I'm going to do my chain 2, and then I'll go to the next corner and stitch those 3 double crochets. chain 2, and 3 double crochets. And chain 2. Then we'll go to the last corner and repeat that. 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. And chain 2. Now we'll join to that chain 3. Whoops. There we go. Whoops. Wants to slide out of there. There we go. With a slip stitch, we'll slip stitch in those next 2 double crochets, then slip stitch in that chain 2 space. This is some slick yarn. And chain 3. Let me get that little knot out of there. There we go. There's 1, 2, and 3. All right, now this is the way that it should look. Now we are going to have to weave this in, and I like to make that little, what I call a stay knot. I just kind of put them together. I don't tie a knot, I just put them together so they'll stay put. All right, and so this is how round or row 2 should look. You've got 4 corners. Each corner has 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, and chain 2. The only difference is we did the first 2 in our color 1 and the last 2 in our color 2, and then we joined and slip stitched to the corner. All right, now you can deal with your weaving in on these if you want to right now. I'm not going to. I like to wait till I'm done with the square and then I do all the weaving in, besides just that first one that I did at the beginning. But this is how it's going to look at row 2. So now we're ready for row 3. We've stitched our chain 3, which counts as our first double crochet. We're going to stitch 2 more, 1 and 2. We're going to chain 2 and stitch 3 double crochets. Oops, better get some more yarn out here. There we go. Now we're going to chain 2, and we're going to go to this chain 2 space and stitch 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and chain 2, which brings us to the next corner. And we'll stitch those 3 double crochets. Chain 2 and 3 double crochets. Chain 2, then we'll go in that chain 2 space and stitch 3 double crochets. And so basically at this point we're just stitching a regular granny square. I'm also stitching over those tails of yarn. That'll make it easier for me to weave those in later. All right, I'm in the next corner. Whoops, there we go. This really is some different kind of yarn to work with. It's a little bit slippy, and it also has a lot of static in it, which is interesting. But it sure is pretty when you're done with it. Now remember, you don't have to use a velvet yarn for this project. You can use any medium weight number 4 yarn. All right, 1, 2, 3, chain 2 and 3 double crochets in the chain 2 space. Chain 2. We're in our last corner of this row. 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, 3, chain 2, and then our last chain 2 space, 1, 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2, we'll join to our chain 3 with a slip stitch, then we'll slip stitch in those next, whoops, lost my loop. All right, let's try that again. Join to the chain 3, then slip stitch in those next 2 double crochets, slip stitch in the corner, and chain 3. All right, so now set it this way. You can see that the heart is there. But you'll notice that it's kind of laying a little bit what I would call loose. And so on this next row, we're going to snug that up just a little bit on row 4 so that it lays really pretty. Now, like I said, it looks a little bit loose, and so we're going to snug that up as we go around, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. And it'll help it lay a lot nicer. So we're going to do the corner the same. Our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, so we're going to stitch 2 double crochets. We're going to chain 1 and stitch 3 double crochets. Chain 1. Now we'll go to these next 2, chain 2 spaces and stitch 3 double crochets. And chain 1. Now we'll go to the next one. And chain 1. So what we're doing on row 4 is all of our chain 2 spaces, we're stitching chain 1 instead. And that's going to help it be a little bit more crisp. So 1, 2, 3 double crochets, chain 1. 1, 2, 3 double crochets, chain 1. Then we'll do that in these next 2 chain 2 spaces, 3 double crochets, chain 1. And chain 1. That brings us back to the corner. And so you'll repeat what we did on these last 2 sides. And see how much neater that looks? It crisps it up, it pulls it in, and it looks a lot neater. I completed those last 2 sides. I slip stitched in the chain 3 and then in the next 2 double crochets and then in the chain 1 space. Now, I did not chain 3. I only chained 1 because we're going to add the trim on. But I don't want to do it just yet. When you've finished row 4, if you want to continue on doing as many rounds as you want to make a bigger square, or maybe just make it a great big blanket, like I said, this would make a lovely baby blanket. And it would be pretty to use different colors and stripe it around and everything. And so you could continue to do that. If you're making this into a square, we're going to add a trim, just a simple single crochet trim. So I'm going to cut off my pink. I'm going to bring in my color 1 that I used for the heart. Snug that down, and we're going to go in this chain 1 space and we're going to stitch a single crochet, chain 1, and single crochet. Now we're going to stitch a single crochet in those 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Whoops. This yarn is so slippy. Now we'll go to the chain 1 space and stitch a single crochet in the chain 1 space. Then you'll stitch a single crochet in the next 3 double crochets, single crochet in the chain 1 space, and we'll repeat this across. All right, and that's a nice solid row of single crochet. Now that brings us to that next chain 1 space, and we'll stitch single crochet, chain 1, and single crochet. And then we'll just repeat what we did here. 1 single crochet in each of the double crochets, and 1 single crochet in the chain 1 spaces. There we go. So now we have 2 sides with a solid row of single crochet. Now if you're making a blanket that you're going to put squares together, sometimes it's a good idea to add another row of single crochet so that you have all of them the same color when you put them together. Or you could do this last row in all the same color, so when you put your squares together, they look nice and neat. Okay, that's totally up to you. But again, you're really going to enjoy making this because it's so much fun. All right, I'm just going to continue my last 2 sides and join back to my first single crochet. I have completed those last 2 sides. I joined back to my first single crochet, and I'm going to cut my yarn. I'm going to go in that next loop and pull this loop to the back. That way we have a nice finish. Come here, loop. There we go. It didn't want to come. Alrighty, so it looks a lot neater when you pull that loop to the back. And of course I've got some ends to weave in, and I'll take care of that in just a minute. But this is how your square looks. So I've tidied up my velvet square and I laid it out here nice and flat. And here is one we did with acrylic yarn. Now, you can see they're not exactly the same size, even though they're both medium weight number 4 yarn. The velvet yarn just stitches up a little bit bigger because it is slightly bigger. All right, so when you're using acrylic yarn, you're going to get approximately 5.5 inch square. It's close to 6, depending on how tightly that you stitch. With the velvet, you're going to get right at 6.25, but you can tighten up your stitches if you want to. Just remember, it's all about gauge and tension. If you want it to be exactly 6 inches, you can tighten your tension up on this one or loosen it up on this one, you know. But it's just a really fun square to make. And remember, if you want to continue on and make that big granny square blanket with just the 1 heart in the middle, don't add this single crochet trim. But if you want to make them and put them together, I was just thinking what a cute hat this would make with these velvet squares. And I think I may have just changed my mind of what I'm going to do with them. I'll let you know. But there's just so many things that you can do with squares. blankets, of course, pillows, hats, scarves, bags, table runners, just lots of fun things to do. And so that's why when I got so many people asking me about how did you get that heart in the center of that granny square blanket, I wanted to show you how to make one. And I thought it was the perfect Friday Fun Day project because it really is fun as you're stitching to see that heart emerge out of that square. All right, so this is our accidental heart granny square. I hope you'll have a good time making some.